Hi, and welcome to the Swim Parent Podcast. My guests today are Dr. Bradley Hudson, Dr. Megan Rodeo, and Dr. Jerry Yu. I'm so excited to have them here today. They're from Next Level Physio, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves and a little bit about their specialties. So let's start with Dr. Brad.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Brad. I'm originally from Texas, but I've kind of moved around since college. Mainly played baseball growing up, so I played all the way through college. I was a Division I at Southern Illinois University, and then I pursued my DPT at Duke University after that. Last year, I did a sports residency, so I worked directly with the University of Utah Athletics and just relocated back to the Raleigh area and started working for Next Level. My area of expertise typically lies in overhead athletes and speed and agility development.
What is overhead?
Overhead could be a lot of baseball, a lot of softball, swimming especially,
Got it.
because you do actually move your shoulder overhead when you swim, volleyball, stuff like that.
I see. Okay. Yeah. Dr. Megan?
Yeah, so I'm Dr. Megan. I'm originally from Roanoke, Virginia, and then I did gymnastics in college at Eastern Michigan University. And then like Brad, we went to Duke University for our PT together, and then came here to work for Next Level after. But I've got a lot of experience working at the Division I level with a bunch of different sports. I worked at Virginia Tech with a bunch of the athletics or the Olympic sports, which was really cool. And then I also have experience working with the Duke football team, which has been really awesome.
That's
I love
awesome.
all athletes, but I would say in terms of what do I specialize in the most, I would say dancers and gymnasts, and then getting some more football players in here and runners as well, but really taking the experience from the athletic training side and the strength conditioning side in the Division I area and saying, okay, how can we combine strength conditioning principles with rehab principles to make it so that we actually have a better athletic effect?
That's awesome. And Dr. Jerry?
Well, I am neither a Division I athlete nor am I a Duke grad, so I'll be on my own little platform here. Dr. Yu, graduated from Columbia, Rutgers for my doctorate. Been practicing for 25 years now, so I've been in the field for a while and seen the transformation of seeing our physical therapy become a lot more than just the traditional kind where you're getting hot pack, cold back, or cookie cutter exercises. You're doing a little bit more than that. And for us, I think my specialty has always been with endurance athletes, whether it be runners, triathletes, or whatnot. As a triathlete, I've seen a lot of swimmers, and we work with several clubs in New Jersey, and we're looking to do the same down North Carolina. But I would say endurance would be my specialty as far as who I like to treat. Very fortunate to have two amazing clinicians with us, Dr. Brad and Dr. Megan. They've really added a lot of insights into our practice. So glad we could all be on this call today.
Yeah,
And thank you, by the
so
way.
much. Yeah, thank you so much for your time. I'm excited to talk to y'all. I'm a swim parent with no experience in physical therapy for myself or my swimmer. So I have a lot of questions about what y'all do. Your intros were perfect. So it explains a lot. Your website says that y'all are movement experts, and I like that. That's nice. Physical therapy always brings up thoughts of injury, right? That's been my experience, is hearing other people go to PT for an injury. But y'all do a lot more than that, correct?
It's absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that, Rosanna, because I would say that I would argue that the best time for physical therapy is when you're not injured. Because once you've been injured, you've already developed compensations over time. You have maybe picked up some bad habits, whatnot, whether it be in your movements or other kind of habits that have contributed to this. So we always try to tell parents of swimmers or any athletes that, listen, the best time to come in is when you're not hurt. So we can actually point out some things you can work on to decrease the likelihood that you will end up with an injury that could cost you an entire season or cost you a swim meet. So that is the perspective we take.
Yeah, that's great. I definitely want to get into more of that. But I mean, y'all do also treat injuries, correct? That is something that y'all do. So let's just talk about that really quickly. For a swimmer who's injured, I guess it depends on the injury, but what does that look like? What are y'all helping someone with an injury do?
So when somebody first comes into PT after an injury, it's really going to kind of look at the tissue at fault, what happened, and really getting an idea of how this injury developed. Was it a certain thing that happened right then, or was this an overtime issue? Because those things get treated very differently. Now, when you'll come in, we'll do an evaluation of the tissue. We'll not even just do that if it's a shoulder injury. We won't just look at the shoulder. We'll look at other areas of the body that may contribute to you having shoulder pain or developing this shoulder injury. So we will kind of look at your whole movement patterns. And then based off of that, we know where we can start. And it's all about one, we got to get the pain to reduce or start to heal that injury. And then after that, that's when we kind of build back up and start getting you back into the strengthening aspect, building that muscle and tissue and healing back up, and then getting you back into your sport after that.
And if somebody has an injury, does that increase the likelihood that they would be injured in that spot again?
Yeah, absolutely. The research shows it's kind of all over the board with regard to your risk factors and injuries. People love to look at this, but what it boils down to is a lot of things is overtraining or your training load.
Mm.
And the number one risk factor for developing injury is a previous injury. That's what I can say confidently from the research.
Yeah, that was my question, was if you've had it before, that it's something you have to be obviously more careful of. And that's where working with y'all would help a lot, I'm sure. Yeah. Do y'all
I would
have
say,
anything to add to that?
I'll add one thing. I think, particularly with
Mm-hmm.
swimmers, having worked with a lot of elite level from youth through college, I think the number one thing that stands out for me oftentimes is when you have technique issues and you add volume. And we know that the yardage is substantial for swimmers, especially
Mm-hmm.
the more elite that you get. And I understand why that has to happen. At the same time, it's really hard for coaches to keep an eye on every single swimmer in their lane to see if they are having an issue with their technique, or maybe they're fatiguing and the kids aren't saying anything about it. They just want to swim and they don't want to miss a meet for any
Yeah.
number of reasons. And so as a result, what I find is that when we can tackle those issues, we can have a great dialogue with the coaches and just say that, listen, maybe Jamie or Janie, for this particular meet, may not be good for them to participate here, but why don't we save them for a bigger meet coming up? And we try to work with the parents and the athlete and the coaches to make sure that what's best for the athlete and that athlete's longevity is really what we're trying to go after.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The key is to try to prevent the injury in the first place. So what can parents look for that might indicate overtraining or risk of injury, like you said? What can parents do?
I can tackle this one.
Yeah.
I think you've got to look for the things that are maybe happening outside of swimming too. Are they constantly exhausted? Are they struggling to keep up with schoolwork when maybe they weren't previously struggling to keep up with schoolwork? Maybe not wanting to hang out with friends because they're just so exhausted. Those can be your like early signs of, hey, is something else happening? Because the parents probably aren't watching the swim practice the whole time, right? Like
Right.
we don't get to see those pieces, but keeping an eye on things that are happening outside of the pool. And was there a change? If there was a change, that can be a first sign of, all right, let's look at some things. Let's make sure that we're eating well. Let's make sure that we're sleeping well. Let's make sure we're doing all of those other things that help increase performance.
Yeah.
I'll add to that too, is because with the nature of swimming being indoor sport, you can play and participate year round. It doesn't stop.
Yes. Right.
So making sure, especially at a younger age, that you are taking breaks, you are participating in other types of sports is really important. So you get variety, so you're not specializing too early. And with that, just with it being an all year round, like making sure they do get a good break from their overall volume and training.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot more specialists now recommending that, especially before a certain age, kids be participating in a range of activities. What is that age? I mean, because kids are going to specialize at some point, right? They're going to pick something because you just at some point can't do it all. But what do y'all recommend age-wise?
I can tackle this one because it's similar
Yeah.
to swimming and gymnastics are very similar in that
Yeah.
they are sports that people specialize in like fifth grade.
Yeah.
That's right.
Look, and I was that kid. I started doing 20 hours of gymnastics at the age of 10. That is now, as looking back, I'm like, wow, that is wild. But I think it was Dabo Sweeney who said, if I have two kids that have identical resumes, identical sports, identical athletics, academics, everything, the difference of who's going to get the scholarship is actually going to be the kid that also did track, that also did another sport. It uses different muscle groups. It does all of those things. So unfortunately, there probably isn't some perfect age. Even
Yeah.
if it, okay, maybe I do competitive swim, but I do rec soccer. Because I get it.
Mm.
There's not enough time in the day to do all of these crazy travel sports. But is there something that I can do less intense that I just simply enjoy for a longer period of time, at least until they start hitting puberty?
Yeah, like a pickup game of soccer in the park or shooting basketball in the driveway, just so that they're getting a little more diverse movements
Variety,
in variety. Yeah.
Something.
definitely.
So all that counts. You'd say, yeah. So if they're doing something just for fun on the side, but they're not committed to swimming and field
20
hockey or
hours a
what?
Travel field
Yeah,
hockey,
I
exactly.
know.
So-
Us parents can only handle
oh
so.
my gosh.
What about pain? There's a lot of types of pain, right? There's growing pains, there's sore muscles from, a tough workout. And then there's injury pain, or that like those pains that start to indicate that there could be overuse. Like, how do parents navigate pain and when to seek help for pain?
Hmm. I'll just answer real generally. I would say that in general, athletes are really good at hiding their pain, especially if it's
Yeah.
to, unfortunately, please their parents or to please the coach, sometimes for themselves. But that's something that we're really cautious about. But I would say I always look for whether or not kids are moving funny, even just kind of like
Mm.
around. And if they just start like wincing with certain kinds of movement, that for me would be indication as a parent that what's going on? The question, kind of like, hey, is everything okay? And really investigating that, because what you don't want to have is this kid going to the pool with something that's really bugging the shoulder, for example,
Uh-huh.
and they're trying to go at it and they just make things worse. And the last thing that an athlete wants to do is be out for a whole season. And as a parent, if you can keep an eye on those things, that'd be great. Kids are going to whine and cry about how sore they are just because they're just kids, which
Yeah.
is to be expected. But it's that other kind of thing where they're limping, they're moving the shoulder funny, or they're getting dressed differently because something hurts. That's what we have to be careful as parents.
Okay. Yeah. And I assume also if it's just not going away, right? Like
Yeah,
some soreness should be gone within a day or two. And
right.
I find that my daughter has had a lot of growing pains in the last few years. She's kind of in that age where she's, growing a lot, and it can be painful. And I never know, like, is this what is something, and then it ends up going away. But I have those few days where I'm like, I don't know what to do. Should I take her to get looked at? Because
Mm,
sometimes those growing pains sometimes do last a little bit longer than just a
this is
sore
true.
muscle. So I'm always
Definitely.
on the edge.
Usually try to tell people if it's lasting longer than 10 to 14 days,
Okay.
and that's about the timeline of, because you're right, like things
Yeah.
happen. Like, I mean, we know you quote unquote sleep on your shoulder
Yeah.
funny, your neck. You don't even go to a
Well, we
physician.
do.
True story.
I mean,
Uh,
that's true for me, but
And me, Roxanne, we're in the same
so
boat
I
here.
would say about 10 to 14 is the time if something didn't like specifically happen. Like if your kid fell on their arm, like something acute, that's a different conversation.
sure.
But if things just like slowly popped up, 10 to 14
Mm-hmm.
days is my timeline.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. That's helpful.
And that's one of the things I would say to tag on to what Dr. Megan said is that it's always good to exercise caution as far as like getting in touch with a provider that saying, hey, listen, this has been going on for about a week or so. Should I be worried about this? And having that communication with our families and athletes is something that we do pride ourselves in. Even a quick text like, hey, Dr. Megan, just letting you know I
Mm-hmm.
did something in the pool and this is hurting. What should I do? That kind
Okay.
of sort of interaction relationship is what we like to have with our athletes so that we can keep ahead of things so they don't become something worse.
Let's move to prevention. What is it that y'all do with athletes, for swimmers specifically, for prevention? I mean, when would a parent and their swimmer come in to see y'all and say, how can you help? I don't know anything about this. Again, my
Yeah.
connection to physical therapy is there's something wrong, and then the therapist helps you get better. So this whole concept of physical therapy as prevention is totally new to me. When would a parent bring their child in, and is there a certain age? Do you bring them in young and then they work with you as they're developing, or do they have to be at a certain level already? Commitment? What do y'all recommend?
So I would recommend, as a prevention thing, it's really going to start from the ground. So you really need a good base of strength training and being really strong, especially for swimmers. They use extremes of the range of motion that's available, especially with regard to their spine and their shoulders. So you need to make sure those things are really addressed and really strong so they have a good base so they don't end up getting hurt. Now, getting hurt is a part of athletics. It's
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily just because you're strong doesn't mean you're not going to get hurt. It does
Yeah.
happen. Um, so from that perspective, like having a provider, like Jerry said, that you can connect with and have a good open line of communication with, to adjust a program and to that. I don't think there's any age limit on whether you can come in or not, but I think as a athlete gets a little bit more serious into a sport is when you can start to integrate those specific things for somebody. If they're a little young, it's more about teaching movements and like controlling those movements, especially when they're growing.
Yeah.
Kids during puberty, they get a little awkward, movement gets a little uncoordinated,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah. Yeah. You're relearning constantly how to use your
yeah,
new body.
Yes.
especially if you have a huge growth spurt, right?
Yeah.
So those kind of things we can help with, of just teaching them to be a little bit more coordinated, or if they have a PT or a strength coach that they work with, those are always a good thing to have in your toolbox.
Okay. Okay.
Definitely.
That's
I
helpful.
think, yeah, and working with the clubs, we work with a swim club up in New Jersey, and what we've done with that club is create a relationship where any of the athletes, if they're of age or underage, they can have their parents obviously contact us to have that dialogue where it's like, hey, listen, I noticed that Jimmy is having this issue, whatever. What do you think? Well, just come on in. So it's always a free assessment to see if we need to address it. And if it's like, oh, well, you tend to do these three things, then it's
Okay.
Jimmy on his way, not having to worry about this. But if it's something that we can catch when it's early, that's a prime time to start integrating physical therapy post-injury if we need to.
I always like to tell people, and even coming back from, it comes up a lot with like major surgeries. We cannot prevent everything. No one can. You can't. I mean, people get in car accidents, people fall down the stairs, things happen. But what building strength can do, I like to think of it as you're building your own insurance policy. The more strength you have, the better you move. You're building a better insurance policy. So that doesn't mean that things aren't going to happen, but it does mean that if and when things do happen, that we have a better response to them, right? It costs us $40 instead of $40,000.
Yeah.
It's a faster fix for a lot of people, and I think that's really important, and that comes up with, okay, when is it time to get back in the pool? Like, I was having a conversation this morning with a football player of, when is it time to get back on the field? If we haven't had the time to build up the strength, if one little thing happens, your likelihood for it to be bigger than it needs to be is pretty high. But if we can do the right things from the get-go, you're in a better spot.
So strength training is really important. I know my daughter's club, they do dry land workouts. I'm not sure at what age they start that, but they do start pretty young. They're not always using weights necessarily. But if a swimmer is part of a club that doesn't have dry land, what can kids do instead? Is that when they should be seeking out help, physical therapy, a strength training coach? What do you recommend?
I think all of the above. And I'm glad you mentioned starting from a young age, strength training is really important because if you can learn the technique of how to lift properly, whether it's a squat, a hinge movement, or polar press, that will carry over into your years as you start adding more weight onto the dumbbells or the barbell, for example. I would recommend either seeing a strength coach specifically for that child or seeing a physical therapist that does strength training with their kids or athletes, just because then you will get sort of a lot of insights on how to move differently or move better, I should say. And as Dr. Brad and Megan said, building up that capacity over time is going to be really important as far as preventing. And that strength base is really, really critical for that to happen. Instruments, particularly, we all know that shoulders are a big thing. And I have found to be the case where 9.9 out of 10 times, it's not a mobility issue that these kids have in the shoulders. It's often that they need stability and strength. And as the other doctors have mentioned, once we build that strength from a young age, that really can help them to get to where they need to be. So to recap, basically finding someone, a trainer or coach who does work with swimmers, really important, or a physical therapist who does provide strength training in that population is really key.
Yeah,
And oh, go ahead.
I'll add that, I mean, if your club is not doing any kind of dry land training, you need to do that. It is
Mm.
imperative for
Yeah,
swimmers
for sure.
to be strength training and loading. Um,
At
not
what
just
age?
from
At what age do you think?
it looks different depending on the age, right? If
Mm-hmm.
you're super young, if you're 10, 11, 12, you probably won't be loading a ton. It'll be pretty lightweight. It'll be more about teaching the movements, but
Mm.
Yeah,
those are still imperative as you get older. Now, as you get into middle school and high school is when you really need to be strength training and like loading progressively to get stronger. That is not always like, especially for swimmers, they need it because a majority of their sport is unloaded. They
Mm-hmm.
they don't get any load through their bones from just bone mineral density and health. They need to be doing stuff on dry land.
So that strength training is going to help them swim better, but also prevent injury. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And then prevent injury, as you said, like create kind of like a insurance where you're
Yeah.
preparing your body
yeah,
for the future,
Think about it
hopefully
as
be more
being
prepared.
being more resilient. And the stronger you are, the more resilient your body is to different demands.
I
And
think yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask
Yeah,
if strength training, does that help you recover from injury quicker?
definitely.
Yeah, we can take an example of let's say somebody with an ACL injury. Before you go into surgery, a lot of times in athletics, you will do what we would call prehab. You would do rehab before you go get the surgery. And that is all to maintain your strength, reduce the swelling, and maintain. Because the stronger you are going into a injury or a surgery or anything like that, the better outcome you're going to have right after.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. That's not something I have really thought much about, but that makes a lot of sense. It's
Yeah,
another reason to do it.
I think along the lines of strength training too, Roxanne, looking at preventative measures, we're always asking questions that are outside of the physical as well. So, for example, what is your stress level like? How
Mm,
is your sleep? And for a lot of kids, sleep is really poor in general, especially if you are a multi-sport athlete. And homework, all that kind of put together can really wreck a
mhm,
kid. Um, are they eating enough protein? Are they eating enough? Period. Because if
mhm,
they're not even doing that, they don't even have what's required to start the repairing process if they don't have the fuel inside them to do so. And I know, unfortunately, there are a lot of body image issues that can happen in the female population and boys as well. But that's something to be considering as well. Like, is my child eating enough to recover between practice and meets and whatnot, so that they can actually be ready for the weeks to come? So I'm looking at longevity in our kids because ultimately the goal is, yes, maybe they will swim in college, but we really want to get these kids to have a healthy life in the future too, so that they don't get burnt out from swimming. They still love it. Whether they decide to stay in it is irrelevant. It's really just about whether or not this kid can have a healthy life 10, 20, 30 years from now is what the perspective that we have going into working with swimmers.
I love that conversation. It feels like more of the medical community is embracing,
Yes.
the more holistic approach. What's happening with stress and emotional and food and nutrition, and it all is just all tied together.
Yeah. There was a great study that came out not too long ago about what do the elite high school athletes do, and all the things I mentioned were the things that these kids do. So if you're a parent listening to this and you want your kid to be at his or her best, make
Yeah.
sure that they are sleeping enough, they're eating enough, their stress levels are maintained, they're in good emotional health, they have people around them that they can really bond with, because that's all really important as far as keeping this athlete really healthy for a season.
Yeah. I think that's really important. I wanted to also ask y'all about performance plateaus. Could a parent bring their swimmer in who's hit a plateau? I know that hitting plateaus in swimming is very normal. It's something we talk about a lot among parents and the kids, and just trying to like get them to, again, focus on things that they can control and just keep at it and kind of work through. But sometimes it would help to have a little more expert opinion when you hit that point. And is that something that y'all would
Yeah.
do? Is that something that y'all can help with?
Hey, anyone jump in there?
Yeah, 100% yes. I know that we talked about it a little bit, and Brad mentioned it. When kids go through puberty, I would say boys especially, because their growth spurts are usually more drastic. Bone grows faster than muscle. Like we have to remember that, which is one why kids get
But
hurt.
wait, can we say that again? Wait, bone grows faster than muscle? Okay.
Correct.
I don't
So
I've never heard that before.
when kids, when a boy grows 6 inches in a year, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That happens way faster than the muscle can catch up. So we have to
Ah.
one recognize that, right? Like that's
Mhm.
why they look awkward and lanky, like your 6'2" freshman basketball players look really unathletic. That's
Like little
why.
baby
Yeah,
giraffes.
Yeah,
exactly.
their muscles haven't caught up.
Mm.
Which is oftentimes when those plateaus and awkward stages happen and you're like, "Why am I maybe getting worse at swimming when I should be getting better or just kind of staying stagnant?"
Yeah.
That 100% is when that strength training is actually, like, super, super important because, okay, well, muscles take longer to catch up. Can we maybe expedite that process a little bit? And that can help them kinda get through that plateau. Let's teach them how to create power. Kids don't often really understand how to create power, and teaching
Mhm.
it to load under a weight can help do that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
And
great.
I would say also, Roxanne, along that same line, all the other questions we asked before. So if they're hitting a plateau, again, sleeping, eating enough,
Mhm.
stress, all that kind of stuff can really add to it. On top of that, did they have a past injury that wasn't rehabbed well, and they're
Mm.
just sort of still compensating for that injury? These are things that can also be contributing to the plateau that we want to really address again holistically to make sure that that's not what's contributing to the plateau.
Yeah. Yeah. So what does that look like? They come in and you ask a lot of questions. You do what does an assessment look like?
Couple things. First thing, we'd have a full whiteboard session for any of our athletes who come in, and their parents are invited to come as well, because we want them to see all the things that we are asking. So they might even be able to tell us, hey, I noticed that Janie isn't eating enough or doesn't do enough strength training. And so that we can all sort of together look at what's missing in the picture, what gaps
Mm.
there are in that session. So we ask them, how long it's been going on for, what they've tried maybe for past injuries. We ask them those questions I mentioned before, like eating, sleeping, stress, that kind of stuff. And then we talk about the things that can help this person get better faster if they've had an injury. So I know for parents in particular, speed is important. And especially if you have a pressing schedule with meet and time, there's not a lot of time in there. And so we use what's called regenerative therapies that a lot of practices around us don't use. And that includes electrodry needling, includes shockwave, which helps to regenerate tissue, as well as blood flow restriction. And using these modalities in conjunction with a custom approach to make sure that we're addressing the root cause of why they're having the performance plateaus or these chronic injuries is really what helps athletes get better faster. Often people feel better within us even less than 6 visits. And so in that time period, we just try to really maximize how much we can help that person get over whatever slump they're having if there's an injury involved, but also address what needs to be addressed if they're having a performance plateau as a result of something else.
A lot of us parents turn to private lessons to help our kids tweak their technique, perfect it, make sure that they're not doing it wrong in a way that will continue to injure themselves, or get an injury in the first place. And so I had absolutely never occurred to me to think about going to see a specialist like one of y'all and saying, let's look at what's happening here and let's see what we could improve for their overall strength and health. So that's really exciting.
Definitely. And sometimes I've had parents actually, especially if their child's coming with a shoulder issue or has had shoulder issues before, I'll have them bring a video of them swimming so I can see if there's anything there that hasn't been picked up yet by their coaches to mention
Yeah.
that, hey, maybe the issue is that they're crossing the line if they're in freestyle,
Yeah.
as an example. So all these things are just meant to make sure that parents and athletes have the right information and the right roadmap to be able to start addressing things that can help benefit their performance plateau now or injuries they've been dealing with forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think when it comes to plateaus, like I'm glad you brought up some technique and like getting private lessons and stuff like that. You got to keep in mind, like with anything sport performance wise, it's not instant. Those things take time. So
Yeah, that's a good
working
point.
through working through technique and the plateau is completely normal, and we don't need to shouldn't have to stress about that too much. Those things, making sure they have the private lessons. And there's a quote I love by Derek Jeter: hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. So you're always going to have somebody that's bigger, faster, stronger. It's the way it is in sport, right?
Yeah.
So working hard, working on your technique, doing all those things, like if you're checking all those boxes and doing it right, you'll overcome that plateau. But it's completely normal in sport, especially when you're developing and trying to learn.
So, we've talked about the reasons why parents might want to seek out help from a physical therapist. What should parents know about finding the right physical therapist, and what are we looking for? I mean, I didn't know before I started chatting with y'all. I didn't know what the DPT was and the CS, right? So maybe let's start. If you could just tell us what that is. I should have maybe asked y'all at the beginning because I had to look it up.
So behind most physical therapist names, you will see PT first. That just means that they got their board and that they're a board certified physical therapist.
Yeah.
And then you will see DPT. That's the schooling. That's the doctorate of physical therapist. If it's an old therapist, they might still have a master's degree because it transitioned to a doctorate. I don't remember when, a while ago, but
15 years ago, 20 years ago.
Okay.
Out there. That doesn't mean they aren't qualified. It just means that they're a bit older, and that's fine.
Okay.
As far as the CS, that's your personal training certification. There's 1.5 million different personal training certifications out there. Your CS is your gold standard. I always tell people, even adults, like, oh, I'm looking for a personal trainer. Look for a CS behind the name. Doesn't mean that they're not good if they don't have it, but your likelihood that you're going to find a good one on your first try is probably higher. Test is harder. It's just a harder certification to get. Yeah, that answers that part.
Yeah, that's helpful.
When looking for a provider, though, I would always look for somebody that has past experience in sports.
Okay. Like, you mean personally, or they work with athletes? Like,
probably,
Both.
I mean, at least
both.
both would be preferable, but at least that they have experience working with higher level athletics.
Okay.
If you have not lived that life, and if you have not been into that kind of area, it's you kind of can get lost because I'll return to that conversation we had earlier on some specialization stuff. If you get an unexperienced PT within regard to athletics, they will tell you do not specialize. It is bad for you. It increases injury. It increases all these things. But that's not reality. I have a different perspective on that. Megan, she specialized since she was 10 years old. I specialized. Yeah.
It turned out fine.
I specialized really early as well. And it wasn't anyone's fault. I loved playing baseball. Right. So it just happens. And it at some point it does get necessary to specialize, in my opinion. It's just how are you combating those things, and are you training correctly? But when looking for a provider, find a provider that has those type of experiences, and they will be able to relate to you a little bit better.
Definitely. Ideally for swimmers, if your provider has worked with swimmers before or is a swimmer, really helpful as well, just because of that understanding and the understanding of seasons and how long meets can go forever and whatnot. The training schedules, all that kind of stuff really makes a difference when you're getting treated by somebody with those experiences.
I always tell people too, if you walk into a physical therapy office and everyone is on walkers, maybe walk out. And it doesn't mean that they're bad therapists. It just means that it's a different population.
I mean, they have a different focus.
For sure. If they only have 10-pound weights, maybe walk out. You've got to find people that have the resources that you need. And that doesn't mean that they're bad therapists. It just means that it's probably not where I would send a high-level athlete.
It makes a lot of sense that you'd want to see someone who is regularly seeing athletes and dealing with the sort of athlete issues. I like the point that you brought up, Dr. Brad, about specialization, because it's great advice for kids to have a range of activities. But for some of us, I mean, it's a little late. Like my daughter has been swimming for 7 years, exclusively swimming, and she doesn't want to stop. Like she's in it. She's in it. She loves it. So what interests me is, how do we move forward from this point in the healthiest way possible to prevent injury, keep her strong and healthy?
Honestly, my biggest advice when somebody does get into like one sport, like you with your daughter right now, and you're just kind of getting after it and going through it, is as a parent, especially, and I talked to my father about this, and enjoy it right now. Really enjoy it. Whether something college, the next level comes out of it,
Yeah.
enjoy it right now, because when you are good at your sport and you're excelling and you're progressing towards that, you can kind of get lost in what's the next thing. And I know I was
Yeah.
guilty of that. I was good and I was progressing, and I was always striving to be better and everything like that, which is not a bad thing. Sometimes you need that drive, but don't get so focused on the future that you miss the moment and enjoying it right now, especially as the parent.
I was going to say that's, wasn't sure if you were talking to the parent or the swimmer, but I think that's important for both. That's a really good point. I have one more question. We're approaching holiday season if we're not already in it. And the ads on my feed, because I have a swimmer and I love sports content, are all of the tools for sore muscles, massage guns, compression boots, and the cupping tools. And I saw these muscle stimulators last night that I'd never seen before. What are your thoughts on those things? Stay clear? Can they be helpful? Is it all a scam? What should parents know about when their kids put, these expensive compression boots on the Christmas list?
I think hard work beats how much money you spent on a Normatec.
Okay.
There is a time and a place, don't get me wrong, but I think it is so easy to get caught up in what social media has and what, D1 athletes have and blah, 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 that we get a little lost in the sauce as to what actually creates good athletes.
Yeah.
Well, sleep well, have some friends, and work really, really hard. Those things, I was the kid that it's one of my, I think I told you guys this, one of the lessons that at the time I hated, but my parents made it so that anything that I did outside of my true gymnastics, like this is your tuition, whatever, I had to pay for. I hated it at the time. I was like, this is stupid. All my friends have this. My coaches are playing favorites because I don't do the private lessons, blah, blah, blah. I was the only kid in Southwest Virginia to do college gymnastics.
Wow.
It was self-driven. It had to. And I think it's so easy to say, oh, this is going to help my kid. This is going to help my kid. It's a nice to have. It's not a have to have. I would rather somebody invest in some weights than somebody invest in some fancy cups.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay. Yeah. My daughter wanted a cold plunge pool at some point last year, and I was like, "What? Where are we going to put this? And how long is it going to take to fill it?" And I had so many really good questions, and that she hadn't thought through, and she was like,
"Okay." Gas station and throw it in a bathtub.
So I know. So we never bought it. Is my point? Because I was like, this just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask Elle about those.
Just to tag on to what Dr. Megan said, definitely nice to have. It's not necessary to be the best athlete you can be.
Okay, but most of them are safe. I would say.
If you use cups for too long, you might get some blisters. So I would just caution parents on that.
Okay.
But having the purple spots is normal, so you don't have to worry about that. The boots are great for recovery. I use them for post races and stuff like that personally.
Okay.
So again, nice to have. Doesn't necessarily help recovery substantially for kids. They're already they already have the hormones to recover well. in my
Yeah.
opinion. So I don't think it's going to have that much bearing on their recovery, personally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That was my last question. Let me know if y'all have anything else to add that you think parents should know about physical therapy.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing we want to put out there to the parents is that we do offer free consultations for any athlete coming in and their family, just to make sure that the kids have what they need to be the best they can be in their sport. And if you have something that's been going on for a long time, we often see a lot of athletes from other PT practices.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, unfortunately, if you've been to PT before, it's a very transactional experience. You go in, your copay, you do these exercises, maybe with someone, maybe unsupervised oftentimes. And as a result, you're kind of wasting your time and your money there. And especially if you have an athlete, and again, like Dr. Megan said, if you're going to a place where sports isn't a specialty, athletes aren't a specialty, you're not going to get what's needed for the athlete to recover fully and ideally for their sport. So again, whether it's virtual or whether it's in person, we'll just put that to parents out there that we would love to just kind of help get your kids on the right roadmap for their longevity.
Y'all have locations in Raleigh, Cary, and New Jersey. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
correct. Woodcliff Lake and Montclair, New Jersey, actually.
Okay.
Mhm.
That's good to know.
My last bit of piece of advice is, as a parent, if you're struggling of should I do this or should I not, or how do I support my kid through this moment, remind yourself, why do we do youth sports?
Mm.
Like we talked about earlier, it's like less than 1% does Division I athletics. If that's the goal and that happens, great. I'm glad it happened for me, but like it's rare. Why do we
Yeah.
do youth sports? Would you use sports
Yeah.
to create good humans and active adults?
Mm-hmm.
If we're losing that, like we want to teach teamwork. We want to teach how to work through adversity. We want to teach them how to move so that they understand the importance of exercise as an adult. Don't lose that in all of the, oh my gosh, this is 30 hours a week and life is stressful and all the things. Remember why we do youth sports.
Yeah. My parting words will be for physical therapy and coming to see a PT. If you're willing to invest the money into sports and into private lessons and stuff like that, you don't need a PT until you really need them.
Yeah.
So don't, like, when it comes to getting the right provider, you want to pick the right one and make sure that they're a good fit for you, because you are investing a lot into them and making sure that they get your kid back into the sport that they want to participate in.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roxana.
Thanks
Really
for being
appreciate
on
that.
the Swim Parent podcast. Yeah. Thanks for your time.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having
Appreciate
us.
All
it.
right.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening today. I hope you enjoyed my interview with Next Level Physio team, Dr. Jerry Yu, Dr. Megan Rodeo, and Dr. Bradley Hudson. If you'd like to schedule a free consultation with them, you can find more information on their website at nlphysio.com. I'll put the link in the show notes, as well as more information on where you can follow each of them on Instagram. If you enjoyed the episode today, please share it with a friend who would also enjoy it. Like, subscribe, follow, and share. You can also rate and review. That helps me a lot. Thanks so much, friends. I'll see you next time on the Swim Parent Podcast.